Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Susan Pierce here with Eden's Living TV, and today we have a treat. We have Megan Fenyoe. She is a Air Force veteran, so thank you, ma'am, for your service. And she's a TED Talk speaker, but she is the CEO and founder of Freedom Haven, and also a movement which we're going to talk about today is I Am Enough. So, Megan, welcome to Eden's Living TV.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
And you're also a medical clinician, or aren't you a mental health expert, like a
I'm a
practitioner?
licensed I'm a licensed mental health therapist. Yes, I've
Oh
been a
wow.
therapist for about 15 years, and that's what I did in the military. I was an officer
Oh wow.
and provided mental health treatment to active duty and veterans. So that's been my primary gig for the last 15 years, as being a therapist.
So you're probably really familiar with a lot of post-traumatic stress. As we shared before we started this video, I am a survivor of a sexual assault and some trauma, and I have post-traumatic stress. I'm not claiming it, but people don't understand how it really does affect every aspect of your life.
It does. It does. I also have a PTSD diagnosis. I don't live my life like I have PTSD, but as a therapist, I do see a lot of PTSD, and it does affect your entire life. But the great thing is, and this is what I teach when with my patients and when I speak, is there's amazing techniques and things that you can do so that it doesn't have to control your life.
And that's what I'm learning is to identify my triggers. And if people continue to trigger me, just get away from them. Like get out of the environment. I noticed, let's talk about ground before we start talking about your I am enough real quickly. I saw you on TED Talk and you were talking about how to ground yourself. Can we just touch on that to help people that might, and how to get a hold of you at the end if they want some therapy? I don't know if you do civilian therapy, but
Oh yeah, I'm not in the Air Force anymore. So yes, I do have a private practice. So my best-selling book came out 5 years or 5 months after I walked away from my abusive ex-husband. And one of the things that I talk about in my first book, my second book is actually coming out in 3 weeks. But in my first book, I talk a lot about how to ground yourself. And so that can be soothing grounding skills, physical grounding skills, emotional grounding skills, anything that you can do in the moment to help distract your mind from your limiting beliefs, from your negative thinking. Usually, our thoughts come from the past or come from what I call future tripping. And so, when we're able to bring ourselves back to the moment and ground ourselves, we're able to find that and distract ourselves in an appropriate way, we're able to find that those thoughts that we're thinking are pretty non-existent because they're in the past or they're in the future. And so we have to have lots of different coping skills, like I like to say, in our coping tool belt to help deal with different types of negative emotions and feelings.
it is all about getting present. And congratulations on your second book. And I would love to have you back to promote that book. So let's book that at the end. I want to support you as much as I can. But let's talk about your movement, I Am Enough, and how that really all came about.
Yeah, so like I said, I walked away from my abusive ex-husband 3 years ago, lost my six-figure income about 2 months before that. So, and at the age of 38, I literally just kind of like was like, okay, now what? Like, I was completely traumatized the from the relationship, and so I got myself into my own therapy and just started to do the difficult trauma work, the recreating me and closing. The closure wasn't going to come from my ex-husband, but what really helped me was understanding that the closure was going is from me, right? And closing the person I became when I was with my ex-husband. And so about probably about 2 to 3 weeks after I walked away, I started writing. I never thought that my book was going to become a book or even be a bestseller. But I published it 5 months after I walked away from him. And then about a year later, about 8 months later, I was getting restless. Like I was, talking all over the country about my book, TV, podcasts, all of this stuff. And I was also working my private practice at the time. And I was just getting really restless. Like there's something more I wanted to do. And my first book is called You Are Enough. And I've always loved that phrase, I am enough. I actually have it tattooed right here on my collarbone, which is, I got it tattooed while I was married. So this
Oh,
tattoo came
wow.
before any of this. And so I kind of became restless, and I'm like, okay, what else can I do to help people? And as a therapist, I talk about the power of visual coping and having visual coping skills to help, which is one of the grounding skills that I used in my trauma work was visual coping cards. So like I would write different things on sticky notes, like I am enough because I got out of bed this morning, right? Like that's where I had to start.
Yeah.
And
That's a big
as
one
I started,
sometimes. That's a big one. People don't realize when
yeah,
you get so depressed and you are so browbeaten by these narcissistic men, you become hopeless. You become where I can't even get out of bed. So getting up out of bed is an accomplishment some days.
right. And so that's where I had to start. And the more that I repeated this phrase to myself, the more I was able to create more powerful statements. And so I talk about that with all my patients too, something visual. So when you're in your head and you can't get out of your head, you need something that you can read, that you can literally have in front of you to read so that you can distract your mind from the negative thought. And so I came up with our coping cards. So these are the I am enough coping cards.
Oh, I
On the
love
back it says
this.
the word because with 3 lines. And I just started like giving these out to people. Didn't know where it was going to go, but within the first 9 months, I had people from all 50 states and 22 countries go to my website and get these cards. You can get 5 of them for free. And so in the first 9 months, we were international.
That's
The movements,
amazing. Go ahead real
yeah.
quick.
So the movements in all.
People, or since they're listening, go ahead and tell people how they can get their own card if you're still doing that. Go ahead and
Oh,
tell them.
oh yeah. Yep. I'll give all of that information.
Okay.
So so you can get 5 cards for free. And you can just go to IamEnoughMovement.info. You can get 5 of them. And so I'll give that again at the end when I give all my contact information. So in the first 9 months, like I said, we ran, 22 countries, all 50 states. It was just me at that time because it was just a movement. And so people would give these cards to anyone, and like people, homeless people. I had one friend that took 500 of these cards to Uganda, and I had got videos of kids like holding these cards in Uganda, and teachers are giving them out to their students, and I have them all over my house because it's a way to pick this up and then read what you wrote on the back and remind yourself why you are enough. And again, you have to start small and build up to that. And so about a year, I launched the movement a year after I walked away from my ex-husband. And then about almost a year ago, someone approached me and said, hey, like, have you ever thought about turning the movement into a nonprofit? And I'm like, no, I'm a mental health therapist. I don't run businesses. Like, that's not my thing. Like, I don't want to run businesses. I just want to help people. But I was also getting a little antsy again. That's what happens. I get antsy and then I do something big. And so, but I was funding the movement all out of my own pocket, but I wasn't able to reach enough people. Like there was something more that I wanted to do with it. And so in 2019, no, 2000, yeah, I can't remember, 2019, 2020, the movement became a 501c3 nonprofit. And so that's awesome. It's super exciting. We're brand new.
You just had a race, a virtual race I saw. I was watching y'all do your speaking and your virtual race.
Yeah. So so during quarantine, one of my board members and I really needed to get specific about what we wanted to do with the movement. And so we came up with Freedom Haven, which is going to be, right now we're raising money for Freedom Haven, which will be a domestic violence emergency shelter for men, women, and children. It'll be separate because men also do get abused.
Yeah.
And so it'll be emergency shelter in transitional living home. Our first one will be here in San Diego because that's where I'm located. But then our goal is to have Freedom Havens around the country. So right now, the movement, which is the 501c3, which sometimes people get confused about, is raising money to break ground to open the first Freedom Haven here in San Diego. And so, yes, we had a virtual run walk, our second annual one that we did just last week or 2 weeks ago. We're doing stuff all over the country, just raising money, bringing awareness, giving the cards out. People can make a donation. We have t-shirts, we have I Am Enough bracelets, we got all kinds of good swag stuff to help us raise some money. So it's
Love
been,
me some swag.
yeah, so I work full time as a therapist. I see 37 patients a week, and then
Really?
I have my own podcast. I'm a speaker, and then I run this nonprofit, and yeah, so it's a busy time for sure, but it's really fun.
Yeah, and I'll be able to come on. That is the Blind Bombshell podcast. So y'all, where can we find those podcasts? Is that on
So,
Spotify or iHeartRadio?
yep, it's iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, any place that you see, you find podcasts. That's where we're at. I do it with a co-host right now, so we're in our third year. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds fabulous. I want to touch on just a little bit for our audience because I do know what it's like to be broken by a narcissist. He was telling you, calling you names and gaslighting you and everything like that. So, guys, if you find yourself in a relationship that is just browbeating you, breaking your spirit, Megan's a fine example that you can get out and you can turn your life around and you can actually help other people. And that's what this is all about, is creating movements like I Am Enough. So I will support you anyway. When you get your book back out, I'd love to have you come back. And then when you do your christening of your new Freedom Haven, I would love to have you come back and let's cover that for you.
Yes, it's going to be a couple years. We're brand new. We got a long way to go to reach that $1 million mark, but it's been fun. And yeah, the book comes out June 2nd. Pre-orders open right now. I never expected to write a second book, but I felt like there was a lot of things missing from the first one. As a therapist, there's lots of topics that I can talk about. I've been a therapist for 15 years, and I have so many resources and so much knowledge in the field that, although I share my personal experiences in both books, I really wanted it to be, a book where people can really take something from it for themselves. And so, yeah, the second book's smaller than the first one because I never expected to write it. But it's exciting time. So yeah, it'll be out on June 2nd.
I'm about to publish my first one. I'm telling you, it's a lot of work. People that have never written a book, it's like a second job. I mean, it's a lot of work. Mine's in the editing phase, so it's there. It's like 245,000 words. So my hat's off to you because I know that was a job.
Yes, good job. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you.
I am enough.
Yep, exactly.
All right, tell people how they can find you and how they can, donate or get their own free cards. And I want to join the movement. I'm here to support you, and I just love it. I love it, love it, love it. We got to support our tribe out there.
Exactly. So the easiest way to get a hold of me, everything is just Megan Fenyoe. My website is Megan Fenyoe. All social media is Megan Fenyoe. That's the easiest way. The movement, you can go to IamEnoughMovement.info. That's our website. You can you can get the cards there. You can look at all of the stuff we're doing around the world. We have an Instagram page so the cool thing too is like when people get the cards, we ask people to take selfies. And then they send me the selfies and then they get their own day on Instagram. So our Instagram account is enough_movement_. And you can see people from all over the world with their cards and, showing the world that they're enough. So, but yeah, so that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Well, I say keep rocking it. You're doing a fabulous job, and I'm proud of you to come back and find yourself and rebuild your life. It just shows that strong women, we're a force to be reckoned with. Keep rocking.
Yes.
Thank y'all for tuning in today. And if you want to hang on just one quick second for our sponsor, I am an EMF specialist. I do come and I remediate cancer clinics and chiropractic clinics because EMF radiation actually splits your DNA and it creates autoimmune and cancers in the body. And we want to come in and harmonize that. I've got a chip cell on my cell phone, but I have products, guys. If you're worried about the EMF radiation, please inbox me. I'd love to take care of you. And again, thank y'all for tuning in today. Eden's Living TV, you can heal one bite, one thought, one prayer at a time. Y'all have a great day.
Bye.